Hello everybody. Hey, we are here again, myself and Barton Johnson, myself being Roberto and we are going to do a nice talk today. Where did I look there? We're gonna do a nice talk about how blockchain needs some adjustment to be actually adopted for everything. Because when it was initially architected, not everything was being taken in consideration, right? So we need to start explaining for those that don't understand very well how a blockchain works, how it's structured, okay?
So why does a blockchain need all those computers in the first place?
Yeah.
Why don't I just use the bank?
That's a good question. For example, well, bank, if the blockchain is used for financial things, like blockchain is used for ownership title of land or other things, it's not even a matter of bank. But the first beautiful characteristic of a blockchain is that it is decentralized. Decentralized means that there is no one server, one computer, one account that has authority on top of the other, that decide in behalf of the others. A blockchain as a decentralized system, every participant of the blockchain should have exactly the same power as anybody else. So nobody is the leader, because if you kill the leader, you kill the whole team. While it's a leaderless system where no server leads on top of the other, right?
So that sounds complicated. Why we go to all this trouble?
Just to remove the middleman. In the moment that we need to rely on a third party in order to achieve something, which can be a phone call. When I call somebody, it seems that I'm calling directly the other person, but in reality I'm calling into my phone company route to the other phone company, which route to the other phone. When I send money through the bank, it seems that I'm sending money directly to the other person, but in reality I go to my bank, I instruct my bank to move money to the other bank, which instruct the person that receives money.
In fact, the last time I tried to send money from my bank, they told me that my funds are frozen because they detected some suspicious activity because of a couple of websites that I was looking at.
Well, they try to protect you, but that shows that they have power on your money, not you.
What websites I look at is my business, okay?
They pay attention because they spoke with mama. How you spend your money.
I told my mom.
Exactly. So, to be mom resistant, somebody came up with the idea to have a coin that is impossible to control it in a centralized manner. So once you hold your coins or your money, they are digital, they are internet money, magic internet money, somebody calls them. You can send it to whoever you want. And this big responsibility, whatever, but comes with big responsibility, meaning that because there is nobody central, if you make a mistake, you cannot blame anybody else than you. So decentralize also responsibilities, but give a full control to people on their things managing a blockchain, which is not only money, it can be your medical record, can be your private information, passport, documents, your rental contract for your house, the ownership title of your car, many other things can be managed in the blockchain.
So I think, in so many words, the property that we're describing is referred to in the blockchain space as censorship resistance, which means that there's not any one person who can stop you from sending a transaction if you want. And this is not something that's limited to money, obviously. Again, with your title management, if you own shares in a company, if you have a title to a car, maybe there's somebody out there who's against you, who wants to control the system, and they want to stop you from sending these transactions for one reason or another. Part of the reason that we like that blockchain is decentralized, that it's a step over what we had before, is because in that network, no person can actually tell you. But this comes with a caveat, which is that censorship resistance is only as strong as the network is actually decentralized, is actually a lot of people. Say 2 people who can approve is better than 1, 3 people is better than 2, but how many do you need to actually make sure that I can always send you if I want?
But now there is one additional thing on top of it. And this thing is the fact that to run a blockchain, you need many servers, always on, day and night, always connected to the internet, always with electricity consumption, always maintained to be running well, which we call nodes. And these nodes are run by whoever wants to join the blockchain. Everywhere in the world, people can set up a node and make it run. Now, for things like Bitcoin, the first smart contract in Ethereum, people does it for the love of the technology. It's like when people were running with the CB token, installing repeater radio for radio amateurs. It's not done in function of a business. Nobody install a telephone pole on the road just for the fun of it. The phone and the pole on the road are installed by the phone company because they're going to charge you a bill and support their expense. But the moment that the system is decentralized, and it's important to know, not all the users of a blockchain are running a node at home. Many people, many of you for sure have have used Bitcoin, installing a small application in your phone, spend the Bitcoin, but they don't have a Bitcoin node at home running, right? So, to go to these...
well, in fact, why would I run a node at home? That seems difficult, that seems expensive, the computer's not free, the internet's not free, the electricity's definitely not free. What do I actually get for being a part of this network? Why should I trouble myself to be a part of it?
And in fact, the initial thought of Satoshi Nakamoto team, that guy that built Bitcoin, was this: let's make an economy where every new block in the blockchain creates new coins, and these are distributed to all the people that are running nodes to support the blockchain. But he made a small mistake, right, Barton, in analyzing this thing. He didn't think that people can come together and have a very strong power in creating blocks and controlling all the block production and keeping the money of the rewards, leaving nothing to those that run nodes at home. They are not powerful as these people. So in a blockchain there are two kind of nodes, which should be all in one. Initially the idea was that every node has these two functionality and run both of them. To be a miner, so creating new blocks, and to be a validator, which means validating the quality of the blocks. Now the reward is given only to the miners and not to the validators. So obviously people that want to invest money and to earn money are not interested in the validation, they all go toward the mining. And this happens in Bitcoin. There's just 12 accounts that are made by many people and many computers, but the 12 accounts mainly create and create a new block. But all the nodes, the validators blocks, are making no money, are run by volunteers. They pay their own electric bills, right?
Whoa. So let's break this down a little bit, because I want to make sure I understand what you're telling me. So you mean that all of that computer power on the Bitcoin network, there's thousands of people who have bought custom hardware, they really only go through 12 computers that propose blocks, that actually pick the transactions that go into the history. And this previous history on the Bitcoin blockchain is 99.9% controlled by 12 people?
Yeah, it's 12 accounts, let's say. Okay. So the machine that elaborate the possible new block split this work among many people that have this hardware at home or put the hardware somewhere else, rent to displace the hardware, which is called hashing power, made with these ASICs. But they all try to solve the same problem. In the mind of Satoshi Nakamoto, every computer was solving a different problem that was making the reward goes to them. So there was very little need of strong power, because each computer would do what a computer can do. But now, so people come, rather than if I need to make 1,000 attempts in solving the problem, and somebody's faster than me, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna split this attempt in two groups of 500. 500 I do, 500 I do, the first I find, we do half of the money. And then we do in 4 and get a quarter of the money. And then we do in 8 and then 8 of the money, and so on and so forth, but all represented as a single account, a single vote. Which also is single vote where you need to do validation, which has no rewards. And this is a very big issue in blockchains nowadays.
Yeah, I think I would say it's a big issue, because it sounds like Satoshi Nakamoto's vision is that a blockchain is like a democracy with one computer equals one vote. But if we're talking about 12 mining pools to control the entire history of the Bitcoin blockchain, that sounds like an oligarchy.
And in fact, it is. And until they do it honestly, it's a good thing.
Seems so far so good.
It is very strong to other power to.
The problem is, it's hard for me to imagine, say, the government or a big company approaching 10,000 individual people and telling each of them, you cannot include this transaction. That's difficult. That'd take a lot of resources. It's not hard for me to imagine them approaching 12 companies that are registered companies as mining pools and telling them, look, don't tell anybody, but when this guy sends a transaction,
Delete
can't
it.
clear it.
Or make empty blocks.
Yeah.
Slow
And
down
then you have to wait for the 1 in 10,000 blocks that don't get fined by those 12 mining pools for your transaction to
See, maybe people relate more to things like torrent. Torrent is another peer-to-peer decentralized network for file distribution. But the beauty of torrent is like that everybody provide access to part of the files that they have. This is like if out of all the torrent users, only 12 provide access. And the other only validated that the source is valid or not. Okay, so everybody else reach, right? And this make easy to shut it down because it just goes to those 12 people and shut down the torrent distribution. The power of torrent is that every single computer, every single node does both things.
Well, there's something nice about, say, you know, if I'm gonna go and torrent a file, I like that because I get the file. You know, there's some video game that I've been dying to play, and there it is for no money or whatever. You know, maybe I do it for a very legal and noble purpose. You know, like I share some research documents. Oh, of course, that's what I use torrent for constantly.
Everybody, I'm sure everybody at home. The only use of torrent is to download Ubuntu or share documentation, open source.
So, you know, I get the file that I want, and it's easy and it's fast, and you know, if it means that a little bit of my internet connection's upload is being used to share the files to other people, that's no problem because I'm being rewarded for my time. I get the thing that I wanted. Like how
is a take and give,
right?
Is a balance of take and give. Something gonna give. Now, blockchain wasn't taught initially to serve like land registrations, archives, or warehouse receipts management, or invoicing or memberships management, or many other things which is getting applied now to blockchain. So, first of all, if it's a public blockchain, you want to be sure that everybody maintains a node, not only those few that can make money. So the paradigm has to change. The rewards money of the tokens that are created, they need to be distributed among all the people that is maintaining the network. Not just the two that come together because they have more money, they can make more money by creating blocks. So the first change for blockchain of the futures is to reward not only those that create, but also those that validate equally.
Alright, okay. That sounds very nice in theory, but what about where this meets reality? It's easy for me to give new coins to the guy who creates a block because everybody can see who created the block and then it's a valid block. But if we want to talk about rewarding people who did useful work for the network, the people who validated, who forwarded the transactions, there's so many transactions. Say if I have 10,000 nodes and I have one transaction that gets echoed between 10,000 nodes, then who knows how many individual computer-to-computer transmissions that is? How do I know who is supposed to send it to who? How do I know whether they actually did the work? Like, how can I measure that? You know, the blockchain already struggles to have enough space for the couple of transactions. Like, how would you ever practically prove that somebody's doing the work for the network?
That's not an easy exercise because it's easy to pretend in the internet. They say everybody in the internet is a refrigerator, or is a dog, or is what they are actually not claiming to be. So when people say, okay, I've been participating in this blockchain, I put on my node, I want my share of reward. It's very easy for people to create a small application that respond to the other exactly what they want and collect the money without doing any work.
Yeah.
So I think in the next section we're gonna explore deeply how we believe this problem can be solved, and then we're gonna go down a rabbit hole of technical, mathematical, cryptographic explanations. So brace yourself for the ride. But this is gonna be in our next 20-minute section. Now I want to share something with you to make you understand the importance of how many nodes are running in a blockchain. I was reading the news and I was amused to see something like this. Spike in NXT and hardware nodes after new incentives rolled out. And I'm like, incentives? What does it mean actually? Let me go down and analyze this thing with Barton. I hope there is no audio coming out from the video there. We have John McAfee obtaining the word. How do I click this thing?
No, I don't click it.
It's muted. Okay. So now you see spike in NXT hardware, and scrolling this interesting article, we can learn that they pay. Gelurida, the company behind the blockchains, are paying with the tokens node for just doing validation work, because the protocol that they have doesn't have natively something to reward validators. This is not proof of work, it's proof of stake, but the mechanics is identical. They do reward only who creates the blocks, which are people with a lot of stake, which is a lot of money, meaning that the blockchain has new block decided only by those that have more money, which they can easily not be many. In order to have, now they reach 1000 node, if you want to make some NXT hardware coins, you're welcome to run one NXT hardware node.
While supplies last.
Exactly, while supplies last. But they centralize the function of rewarding people. So it's now part of the consensus mechanics of the algorithm of the blockchain.
We've reduced the fact that the blockchain guarantees that you're going to get your fair share to the promise of some rich people who created it.
Exactly. Which is already something amazing.
No, sure.
Because compared to many other blockchain, people that do validation
but I mean,
get nothing.
Already, I can pay a lot of people to do the work that I think is important.
In fact,
as long as I'm the one paying them, then probably if I tell them not to include a transaction.
exactly. This is the trouble of centralization in decision. As soon as somebody holds the power of influencing others, where is the decentralization here?
Yeah.
Because as correctly Barton say, hey, if you don't do this that I say, if you don't update the software with the version I want, if you don't, then I stop paying people. Then probably people will listen. Like or somebody is so charismatic and charming that said, hey, my creation changed because there is a DAO that hold a lot of my coins, and suddenly...
No.
So
that's one way to buy a blockchain.
Correct. Mostly when the blockchain has a very low value in terms of...
the effort can be bought.
Exactly. So, I hope, let's recap, we are at 3 minutes before the end of the first 20-minute session. 20 minutes went very fast, I love it, yeah? So, to recap, blockchain has been invented to solve a problem that was specific to have an internet money, internet coins, okay? Has been a jump in the dark because there was no previous experiment in doing that. The invention of the blockchain has been amazing, but they need a lot of fixing. Blockchain has been, I do believe, is becoming more important than the fact of the Bitcoin itself, and is being adopted for many uses that are not directly financially related, or they are for low value economy, but more information value.
But there's still systems where censorship resistance is important.
Absolutely. And then the fact that the blockchain has the issue of not rewarding nodes to exist just to validate the quality of the transaction, we do believe is an issue. If you believe it's not an issue, please comment below the video and let us know, because it's a good point of discussion, and we are not perfect. We have our opinion, we are sharing our opinion, but...
And I want to make a point to say that I don't think that we're the first people to ever realize that it would be nice to reward the validators of the blockchain. There are a couple other protocols that have different tries at it.
I want to explore those two in the next episodes, yeah?
I think we have a little trick up our sleeve that maybe we have a way to do it that nobody else has thought of yet.
In the third session of today, 1 hour video podcast, videocast, what is it called?
It's two guys chatting.
Two guys chatting, yeah. Alrighty, then so, very important, write question in the channel and in the Facebook, in the YouTube. We're gonna try to see them somewhere. And then soon we're gonna get better. I promise there's gonna be like a side banner here with the chat that we can interact with them for everybody, and as we go ahead and we learn how to use this machinery here.
Don't forget, if you watch our stream, you'll get free bitcoins.
Right, pay attention to scams. Don't trust this guy. We're gonna do an episode about people getting scammed in the internet.
All we need is your private key, just to prove that it's yours.
Exactly. When you hear this thing, run away. And I guess we're up for the break, and see you in 3 minutes.
Shit, it's difficult to time this thing. I'm not a newscaster. Like, I'm supposed to.
Ciao, 3 minutes. See you in 3 minutes. And we are back.
Okay, welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, welcome back.
It's been a very long 3 minutes.
Oh my God, how many things you did in this 3 minutes? You went to the toilet?
I checked your Facebook for sure.
You scratched your head, it was itchy.
I shouldn't, it's coronavirus.
Now we define the problem. Oh, somebody made the balloons. We define the problem. Okay? Now we need to start defining a solution.
So we left with this a little bit of a teaser that we have the power to, we want to know if there's some way that we can prove the nodes on the network are actually doing the work that they're supposed to be doing. And this is a thing that's really to to drop the kind of the facade back and forth. Roberto and I talked about more than a year ago seriously, and he started to go on about this idea of a proof of participation, that somehow you could actually cryptographically prove to the entire network with the same security that you had that somebody actually made a block, that people had actually been doing useful work on the network, that people had actually been sharing the data they're supposed to be, that people had been validating. And at first I was very skeptical of this for the reason that I gave earlier a little bit, which is, you know, how are you going to measure all this thing? If you have a big blockchain, let's say 100 transactions per second, you know, and so you have however many thousands of transactions per minute, and each of these is being echoed across the entire network, and there's no way that you could prove that volume of work between anybody. But we were really dedicated to try to come up with a solution to this problem. We spent a lot of brainstorming sessions like this on it, and eventually, after a couple of iterations, we started to resolve an idea that seems like it might make sense.
Yeah, the big issue is this. In brainstorming how to prove that people actually participated, doesn't pretend to have a node running, right? The difficulty is really based on what information a node should give the others in order to prove that it's sincerely doing the work and not pretending. And how to know if a node is behaving well or not when there is no measure, because there is no central judge. If there was a central judge and every node need to prove something to the central judge can take a decision, says, you bad, you good, you know.
Yeah.
The problem is that each node, they don't see the full extent of the peer-to-peer network, see only those around them, need to have a way to say, it is good, it is not good. It's not easy, it's not automatic. Let's do a small reminder to people what the consensus mechanic is, what is the use of a consensus mechanics. Exactly because the system is decentralized, means doesn't have a central authority. Decision that each node, each server in this network takes need to be the same decision that all the other networks take. Because information that come in can be malicious, can be wrong. In front of two pieces of information that say the opposite one to the other, a node need to choose one of the two, knowing that all the other nodes make the same choice. So the rules that are written in the consensus algorithm to say make a choice need to be the same for everybody and need to be guaranteed that the choice done is the best choice. That's why it's a very difficult piece of software, an algorithm to write. Okay?
1,000 computers with no leader that all decide to take the same action at the same time.
Correct. In deciding about an external information, transaction of a user, it can be even easy. You have the rule to say this transaction is good, this transaction is not good. The majority you think to be honest, or anyways democracy, even the majority decide that that's what the decision of the majority is. You can validate that the transaction is okay. But when it comes to start pointing finger one to the other, and for each node to say, they're not this bad, the other node is bad, this node is good, there is a lot of space for not being sincere. Like if I have 10 nodes, I'm gonna say, my nodes are good, the other nodes are bad, the other guy do the same, it's gonna become a mess. So, to prove the participation in terms of quality, in terms of useful participation, because somebody can participate doing very bad stuff and not useful stuff. So in order to prove for each node that they are behaving properly and they're doing useful work, we had to hit our head on the wall so much.
Well, and in fact, the very first thing that we tried a lot with is the reason that Roberto can go on about this, like all the problems with judging, that didn't start off as inherently obvious to us. We suspected it, but at first, the idea that some computers kind of judge other computers and then we take a majority vote between them, that was the only way we could think of to attack the problem. So we tried a lot of different models where, say, my computer watches what your computer is doing. I'm sending transactions to you and you're sending transactions back to me, and I'm sitting here keeping account of, are you online when I try to talk to you? Do you forward me a transaction that I think you should have? And I'm always keeping score of all the different people who are contacting me. I, the node. And so all these other nodes, I have an opinion of these other nodes. And when it comes to be my turn to produce a block, I'm going to include a report card that says, this node, I think he did really good. This node, he was offline half the time. I don't like him. This node, I think he did good. And we tried to accumulate this this big list. And it's every time we went into a deeper kind of a mathematical incentive scheme analysis about this, we ran into the same problem that people who are reporting their opinions honestly of the other nodes, what they actually witnessed, are always going to lose to people who find clever ways to report a good opinion of themselves and a bad opinion of others, regardless of their actual behavior, which is a problem that we're probably familiar with from the real world.
And I only think this, that you, in the example you were making, you were giving authority to share an opinion with everybody else only to the node that was creating the block. Which can go back to the same issue that we had with proof of work or proof of stake, where those that create the block are few, and they can constantly give opinion as they wish to about other block. So this for sure is a wrong approach. But nonetheless, we study and went through any attempt.
Start somewhere.
You should see the things that Barton created with animation, with tests that shows.
I'll do blog posts about them.
Yes,
someday.
please, because those are fantastic in my opinion. So this doesn't work. This doesn't work. It doesn't work the fact that only one every long time can judge the others out of his own opinion, which is not measurable by except the fact how the code runs, and people can modify the code of their own node to say things that they want. So this is being discarded, which is the next step, the next approach.
And in fact, one of the general lessons that we took from this is that any time that one node's say-so affects another one standing in the... So like, if I can hurt your reputation on the network by saying something about you, all of those systems that we analyzed can be gamed. And so we decided to turn around. The only way to make a fair system like this is that when it's my turn to say something, I respond by proving something about myself. That's the way we decided to do it. And so the approach that we started playing with that showed a little bit more promise. And there's a couple of funny stories in here that I'll tell. So, because we were inspired by a couple of different things. I remember one of them is my fiance was watching some videos on YouTube, and these guys were talking about, it's like so-and-so said such and such about so-and-so. Does he have receipts? Does he have receipts? And I was like, I kept hearing this word receipts, and I was like, what does that mean? So it turns out in YouTube drama parlance, a receipt is when somebody's got screenshots of the messages that you sent.
Okay.
And so it's and so the receipts on somebody are what you post to show that they actually did blah blah blah. And somehow this mixed with all the thinking that my brain was doing about consensus things. And I started to think, a receipt is... What if when my node sends your node a transaction, your node sends my node a receipt? Just like if I went to the store and I gave you some money, you give me a receipt that I spent the money.
People can fake receipts.
Oh, yeah, in fact. So there's a couple of problems immediately with this. Say here's the two biggest ones that we saw, or that I thought of when I started to consider this idea are, anybody can write a receipt, anybody can fake a receipt. And the second problem is that think about how many thousands of these things there would be happening every minute.
Just to clarify with everybody, a peer-to-peer network is a network where computers are connected not to everybody else, not to all the other computers, but just to those they can reach. This limit is given by the internet service provider that allows certain maximum amount of concurrent connection. Is limited by the speed of the internet, is limited by the routing that is offered by a provider. So as you know, for example, in torrent, nodes are connected to a certain amount of other nodes, not their own. You can choose to ignore one or follow another one, but you are not connected to the whole peer-to-peer, which means that each node has no idea about the extent of the full network. You only see those that is connected to. Those nodes that are connected to others, which are connected to others. So in a form of gossiping, an information that is sent from a node to another, a message reach potentially all the network. So it means that when from your wallet in your cell phone, you submit a transaction to one or more nodes that your phone is connected to, those nodes validate that it's good, the transaction is not crap. If it's good, they register it and they send it to those that are connected to, which they send to do. So this is a necessary mechanics that work for a peer-to-peer network. Now, the receipt that Barton is talking about are receipt about this communication of data. So there are a lot of other kind of information that a peer-to-peer system need to share. New nodes, new IP address, dogs that are barking, every kind of things. And in doing this process, rather than just telling things blindly, they can digitally sign, and the other party says, thank you for the good work that you're doing. This is a receipt of the information that you sent.
So this, I think now in the reverse order we've touched the two problems. So the first one is like Roberto says, a blockchain communicates through gossiping. So this means I submit my transaction to one node. That one node now is going to send to 10 nodes, and each of them is going to give him back a receipt. Each of those 10 is going to send to 10 nodes, which give them back a receipt. And each of those nodes is going to send to 10. So by now, we've created 1,000 receipts out of a single transaction. And every different node on the network has a different set of receipts that it's seen, which seems difficult. Roberto already hinted, he gave away the answer to the second one, which is one of the properties of the blockchain that we're working on is that we have every node has a private key of its own. And so the node itself is capable of producing digital signatures, which can be used to validate that the activity was actually taken by that particular node. So one thing we can say with pretty high confidence is that when I get a receipt for a thing that I send, and it's digitally signed by that node, I have a pretty strong idea that it actually did come from that node. More specifically, that nobody else on the network, including myself, could have impersonated or faked that person. So that's one useful thing that I know about this receipt object. But then the real big question was, how do we tackle this problem with the scale, the sheer number of these things that get generated? Consider if every transaction that goes to the network generates 1,000 receipts across the network, and I'm having 100 transactions per second, there's millions of receipts that we're talking about very quickly. Even if they're small, to count them, to show them all.
First question I have, who is keeping these receipts? My accountant. Where do I put them? What I do with these receipts?
So in fact, our nodes in the network, they keep a kind of a filing cabinet for the receipts if you want. Like really in computer terms, it's a database locally, but you could think of it like a filing cabinet. Like each one, he keeps all these receipts that he gets from retransmitting and keeps them in here. But so the intuition that we ended up following for how you can actually prove something about this comes from, I think many of you live in countries where you can take jobs that do randomized drug testing. Does anybody live in a country like this? I come from America, and this is a big thing that they do because there's a lot of people who do drugs in America, and they like to go to work so that they can afford to buy the drugs. And so the workplaces get very careful about, but see, if you imagine doing a drug test, think about like if you need to prove that everybody's not high every day. What we're talking about in receipts is the equivalent of saying every morning, every employee is going to walk in the building and take a drug test and do a test. And that means the company has to provide thousands and thousands of tests.
In Italy, we are more poor and we do only the coronavirus test. But the mechanic is the same.
And so, in fact, it turns out businesses are a little bit more efficient than this, and they tried to think of a way that they could get the same result, which is all the employees to not do drugs, by spending less resources. And they started to think of this in terms of creating the threat of a random test at any time. So they don't give you every employee a test every morning, but any day you could be chosen to take the drug test. So they use a tiny number of tests, but because you never know when it's going to be your time to get tested, you don't do the drugs in general.
So life is a lottery. Let's say. And now it seems incredible, but we already over the second session. I forgot to start the timer properly, but if I look at the clock, it's 3:41, which means we did already two 20-minute sections.
When we come back, you'll have to hear the rest of the explanation about what it is about drug tests that has to do with counting receipts in the ZBC blockchain.
And also, it's important, we are doing all this exercise to explaining to you for two reasons. First, because we want to create education. There is this camera that go out of focus, I have to apologize. Anyways, we're gonna get better camera as we become rich.
Pretend it's an artistic effect.
Exactly, we do it just to confuse the ideas. Which was the guy that had in his driver license this picture taken out of focus. So when the police stop him, says, yeah, okay, you can go. Anyways, we do this for two reasons. One, to share knowledge. A lot of people have not much idea about blockchain. We try to make it simple, funny, and you can learn something new. And we also want to trigger people response to problems that there are to make innovation in blockchain. So either you are a very big expert, then we're going to talk much more in technical details, or you are just somebody with a good brain that can offer an idea, an open view, something from outside. We're happy to take it in and get opinions and comments. So now we're gonna do 3-minute breaks. You leave your comments below in the video, not below in my table, below in the video. And we're gonna be back after these 3-minute breaks. Don't hold your number one anymore and run to the toilet to pee. We give you the time, then come back and we do the last session of 20 minutes.
You only went 20 minutes ago, but who are we to judge?
Right. and we are back for the last 20 minutes or more session. Now we are going to be out of focus. Now we're going to be very technical. So if your understanding of technology doesn't go down to a good level, yeah, thank you for the bling bling, you are free to. Man, just focus this camera. I'm gonna do something about the camera. Anyway, I leave it to you to Barton for the technical explanation of this solution.
I think what Roberto is trying to say is that we're still figuring out our scheduling and pacing for how these things go. And of the topic we wanted to talk about, we only got them the first 20%. And so now we're going to speed up a little bit and talk more at the pace that we used to talk. And if you guys find that interesting, we're more than happy to share it with you. And if you don't find it interesting, then no problem. So just to kind of round out the explanation we had a minute ago, I had given this analogy about drug testing and how really the key lesson we take away from that is that we can use this random sampling of the events that happen. So if we have thousands and thousands of possible receipts that people are collecting for work that they've done on the blockchain, and we know that each of these events are valid because they match actual transactions or actual blocks that were transmitted previously in the blockchain, we can validate the receipts are okay, and we have a whole lot of them. And what we can do is we can pick some strategy so that after a period of time, a node is required to present a small number of these receipts that he's collected over time. The trick is that the node doesn't know which receipts he's going to be asked to produce when he creates a block until the time of the block. So say if I tell you that so you need to do 1,000 math problems for your homework. I'm only going to check 10 of them, but I'm going to pick 10 of them at random after you submit the homework. Then in order for you to actually hit the 10, you damn well better do all the 1,000, because if you try to only do 200, then you're only going to do on average 2 of the problems that I wind up checking. So it's a very good system to make sure that the threat of being caught not doing the work is enough to cause you to do the work instead of having to measure every single item. So so that's the first part of what we want to do. There's a second part of what we're trying to accomplish with the receipts, which comes down to this problem that even if we have this random sampling, so we have the two things that we can work with. When I'm going to create a block, I can go to my node's filing cabinet and pull out a couple of the receipts that I'm asked for. One of the things that I could do, and we know for a fact that these receipts came from the nodes that I say that they did because they're digitally signed by those nodes, so I cannot falsify them myself. But maybe if I had some other nodes that wanted to conspire with me, one of the things that I could easily do is right when it's my turn to create a block and it says you need to produce receipts from nodes A, B, and C, I can go to A, B, and C really quickly and say, hey, make me a receipt, sign it, give me here. And then I could post them in my block and put them on the blockchain. And it would appear as though I had done the work in the past, which I actually had not. So the really significant part of the system that we devised, which is a little bit technical to go all the way into here, but it's close enough to say that each receipt that I put on the blockchain, one of the fields that it contains is a commitment, what we call a Merkle root, of other receipts that I've actually collected over time, that can be used to prove in the future that a receipt that I produced was actually created a long time ago.
Now,
I'm going very fast, like warp speed now.
Yeah. No, but there is also, to say, an video with all the animations we can see here, and I posted it. If you look for blockchain ZooBC receipts, you're gonna find these.
Actually, since we're gonna take the time, maybe it helps the discussion to actually play the video on the stream. You wanna try?
We can try to do
it's
this
only
incredible
2 minutes or something.
thing. Let's go at the beginning of this.
This is a very beautiful video from our wonderful department at Blockchain.
don't know if the microphone is on or off. So the animation shows how receipts are produced. And
so yeah, one node sends data to another node. That node goes through some work to produce a receipt. After validating the data he sent, then he's going to fire the receipt of that work back to the original. So then this node is actually going to collect a set of receipts. So he's going to broadcast to a lot of other nodes. Each of them is going to make a receipt for him. And he's going to collect them all back to himself. This set of receipts he's going to put into a kind of a pilot account, or what we call a batch, which is all collected under a local group. And after he stacks up enough, he's going to put another batch. And he's, kind of living the pilot account. Each of these batches is guaranteed by a thing called a Merkle group, which means we can prove their prior existence. And the Merkle groups get injected into the blockchain next episode. This part's a little bit less important about
obviously, because you said there are a lot of receipts, people need to be able to
delete them.
Delete them also because they expire. If they are not invalidated in a certain amount of time, there is no reason.
So we don't have to keep them around for it. That's a lovely. Okay. And this is the really tricky part about how do you, when I post a receipt on the blockchain, how do I prove that it existed before the blockchain asked for it? So I look up to see if I can, what we call here a linked receipt, to see if I can prove that it was in the Merkle root that was previously published by another blockchain. So, pretty cool.
Very, very interesting. Here we're back.
Now, this is the point I want to get to, and this is I have a new kitten at home that kept me up all night long, and I was thinking while I couldn't go to sleep because the cat was meowing about how we can actually make this problem more manageable. Because so this system, okay, we've done pretty good in terms of narrowing down the scope of how much data needs to be worked with, and but if the network gets very large, we still have a kind of a problem in terms of how we do this, which is if we imagine, let's say, there's 10,000 nodes on the network. So one thing is I have to keep these receipts long enough for the time, say sometime in the past, somebody in a block included one of my receipts that has a Merkle root. And so there's going to be some number of blocks, and then I finally get to make a block where I can put a receipt that I show is linked from that Merkle root. So I know that this receipt existed back at this time, right? So the problem with this is that when the network is very small, this happens very fast. Say if there's 2 nodes, on average I make every other block. If there's 10 nodes, on average I make every 10th block. But if there's 10,000 nodes, then on average it's 10,000 blocks between the time that I make one and I make one again. Or the chance that one of my receipts was published by somebody else in the past, there's on average a very long length between then and when I need to post my receipt. The problem with this is that this influences the safe expiration time. So if it could be 2 weeks between when a receipt was posted that includes a Merkle root for me and me getting a chance to post the receipt, that means I have to keep 2 weeks worth of receipts on the computer. And like I mentioned, even for a single node, keeping all these receipts could be a huge number. So we could wind up with, let's say if we wanted to process 100 transactions per second, then now that's like 6,000 receipts per minute. But that's not just 6,000 receipts per minute, that's 6,000 times the number of peers I'm sending to. If I'm only sending to 10 peers, then I'm collecting 60,000 receipts per minute. And you can scale this up and see that quickly it becomes over a couple of weeks, this becomes millions of receipts that I have to store in working memory, which is several gigabytes.
I want to reassure people that if this seems confusing, it's also for me. We have a nice white paper that soon is going to be published as a book actually, but it's for free to download in a PDF format in Blockchain Zoo, OSBC, or my website, where you can read things slowly and make sense of them. And you can still always ask questions to us, and we're going to be happy to respond in our podcast. I leave it back to Barton to continue with his explanations.
Properly. I apologize that we went slow before, and I apologize that I'm going fast now, but this is what you get. So the thing that I was puzzling on is, how do you make this more efficient? So how can you do this without having to keep all of these receipts? And I cycled through several ideas that touch on different parts. But the one really key one is this. In our system, we identify two different kinds of receipts, which we call linked and unlinked receipts. You saw them in the video. So the linked receipts, the unlinked receipts can come from anywhere. And in our system, they're not worth very much points. They don't give you very much participation score on the blockchain. But the linked receipts, which are the ones you can prove existed in the past, they do give you a lot of points, because we know for a fact that you couldn't possibly have just made them up right now. We know that's work you did in the past that was already proven in the past. So we have much greater confidence that it was real. So I started to play around with it. So up until now, other than this distinction of being linked and unlinked, we had pretty much thought of these receipts as one kind of thing. Like, these receipts are in a big bucket that all behave pretty much the same way. So there's a couple of filters that decide which receipts I'm allowed to include in a block, and I have to go through all my receipts over this time to try to find the ones that match the filters and which ones I can link. But there's a simpler way to do this that still proves similar things. And this involves saying that there are different rules for which unlinked receipts and which linked receipts you can actually include. So, which in this case, the rules are, the unlinked receipts that I'm going to select have to be from very recently, say even like 1 or 2 blocks ago. For a technical reason, I think the number is 2 blocks ago. It can't be from 1, because you can look forward and predict the next block, but you can't look forward and predict who's going to make 2 blocks in the future. So I think from 2 blocks ago, all of your unlinked receipts need to come from who you're supposed to be connected to 2 blocks ago. And they're going to include this batch of receipts from other people. The other key to this idea is before, we had thought of batches of receipts as being something like you stack them up, and when you hit the maximum, then you save that batch and you start the next batch. Then you save that batch and you start the next batch. But actually, we can prove a lot formally about the behavior of these batches if we were to say that batches are synchronized with the process of block creation. So for each batch that I have a Merkle root saved, I know that all of the receipts for that batch are related to transactions for a specific block height. This makes it much, much easier to calculate on exactly which batch I can keep. So if this is true, then we can do a kind of a trick like this. So it's my turn to create a block. First, I'm going to go to 2 blocks ago, and I'm going to include, say, 10 unlinked receipts that include the Merkle roots of each of those guys. But now it's my turn to provide some linked receipts. I'm going to scan back through the blockchain to find the most recent block where somebody included a receipt from me, or in fact, where somebody was supposed to include a receipt from me. If he failed to include it, then that's actually a kind of a problem, because either that means I didn't send it to him, or it means he refused to include it, and both of those are worthy of punishment. So
everybody lose.
So yeah, it's not till the last receipt for me I can find, but we know for a fact, based on the network scrambling rules, we can tell if we get to a block where a guy was supposed to publish a receipt from me. From there, so once we find that Merkle root, then we can have the randomizer ask for a random set of transactions that should have been in that particular batch, which is one specific batch at that time. If we play by these rules, then we get a really, really cool property, which is the fact that so as I'm doing my work as a blockchain, I'm keeping all the receipts. I'm making these new batches once per block, right? If as soon as I don't see one of my receipts show up in like 2 or 3 blocks, I can delete that batch. Because I know for a fact that that Merkle root is never ever going to be included in the blockchain
passed
already. So the only batches I have to keep are the couple of times that somebody posted a receipt for me, which is much, much smaller, and it doesn't grow with the size of the network. So the way I was planning before, if the time between somebody posting your Merkle root and you getting to post a block, if the time between those two got longer, the number of receipts you have to store got longer. But if we compute it in this way, then actually it doesn't matter how long there is between these two periods of time, because I know very quickly after I do the work that I don't have to keep these receipts anymore, whereas I do have to keep this batch over here because I actually because I could be called on, I will be called on. In fact, I already know I will be called, but this still has the property that we want, which is I still have to do all the work to know this, because
before ending,
as long as it's 2 or 3 blocks out, I don't know whether I'm going to be called on to produce the thing. I have to do all the work.
Okay, so let's say you get called and you show your receipt that match the Merkle root of the box. So what now? What is this for? I don't understand why you're explaining this thing, right?
Okay. So this goes into in ZooBC, we use an algorithm that we call the proof of participation algorithm. And this algorithm revolves around a value that each node has, which we call its participation score. So your participation score is a kind of a compressed numerical representation of whether you're helping the network or not. And all of this business about posting receipts in your blocks and counting up the receipts and linking receipts, all of that has to do with calculating what your score should be. So if you're doing, it's enough to think of there's this big complicated set of things your node is supposed to be doing. If it's actually doing them, then it's going to be proof to the network and that score is going to go up. And if you're not doing them, that score is going to
I apologize, but we started talking about the problem of the gratification or the for nodes that are there, they do validation work and they don't get any share of the new Coinbase, new token, new coins that are created. What does all this receive participation score and things do with that? I mean, like in Bitcoin, there are just a few accounts that collect all the money that are generated, and now we had the halving recently, so people know much better what we're talking about. And we want to solve this problem because we want every node that makes the blockchain of Bitcoin to receive rewards, which they don't. Now, what has the receipts, the participation score to do with all this? I don't understand. Or actually, I pretend I don't understand for the sake of you, listener. I know very well this thing, but
I explain ingenuity. So the whole purpose of this complicated game of calculating a participation score for each node is that's how we compute who gets the rewards. So in ZooBC, just like in Bitcoin,
so the guy that created the block get the score? No.
So
tell me.
So every time a block is created, in Bitcoin, that guy would get some new coins created by the block, but not in ZooBC. In ZooBC, when you create a new block, some new coins are created, but there's actually a kind of a lottery that's conducted between all the nodes who are working on the network, and new coins are given to each of them at random. Each of these nodes has a chance to win the lottery that is proportional to its participation score. So that means if my participation score is 50, it's like I have 50 lottery tickets. And if it's only 10, I only have 10 lottery tickets. The guy with 50 has 5 times more chance to be chosen than the guy with 10.
Sorry, then why somebody will make work to create a block if the reward is not even going to him? Sorry, I don't understand.
I'm glad you asked. It turns out in proof of participation algorithm, we already know which block, to a certain extent, at least one block out, we know who's supposed to create the next block. The networking consensus knows who's supposed to create the next block. Rather than saying that creating a block is an activity that you get rewarded to do directly, we say that if you're a block creator in ZooBC, creating your block on time is your responsibility. And
if you miss
if
that,
you fail that responsibility by not producing the block, either because your computer's lazy or slow or because you're offline, then we're going to dock your participation score. Docking your participation score reduces your number of lottery tickets for the drawing that's held every block to see who's going to take the new tokens.
Okay, now makes sense. So I understand that I better do my job, because if I don't do it, I get less lottery tickets. And that makes sense. So the creation of the block is known one block before the turn. So people cannot say, okay, I turn on my computer only when I know I'm going to do the block.
Yeah.
Because you don't know it until is minus one turn.
Correct.
So so you need to be always ready there. So your node needs to be online always, because anytime the next block has to be you. While you're online, you need to do the receipt communication, because if you don't, you lose score.
Yeah.
And then these things together bring you reward. Now, I know that ZooBC, and this is something I let explain to people. So, ZooBC is a blockchain born for addressing any kind of solution, but addressing specifically also non-financial solution. And what we're talking here is reward, coins, tokens. What is interesting is that in a consortium, for example, a hotel, hospitals, banks, whatever, nobody care about making money by creating coins or tokens, right? But yet the participation score can be a necessary value to determine who is actually with their data center doing the correct work, maybe for very complex transactions that require a lot of computer powers, and who doesn't. So even if there is no coin generated, there is an auditing on who participate properly doing the things that they need to do in a consortium. So this is why ZooBC is a very good blockchain for solutions that are non-financial. Or if, for example, is a chain of hotel that has, I don't know, fidelity points, this can even generate points for the hotel to give to the clients for the different nodes. So the application can be many, but the security of the blockchain is not based on do I have enough coins or do I have enough money to buy over others, to can I do an attack by owning the... So the security is based on the participation, is based on the receipt, is all a matter of cryptographic chain by who signed when, based on what block, based on the hash of the thing. So to attack and to rebuild and to change the past, you don't do a 51% attack for the past, because that doesn't apply. You will need to have all the private key of all the people from the zero to have a built-up blockchain at your favor. So that's a pretty important aspect for ZooBC, not to be dependent on financial aspect. Now I have a lot of money, buy a lot of hashing power, and I do the attack.
So I would even, this point that you made about the participation score is, I think what's the most important about this kind of development is by abstracting this thing into a particular score, into a certain number, we've isolated it from the calculation of how that number gets made. So we have a mechanics for how to reward people based on having a score, and then we have a set of rules for influencing what the score is. So that means that each blockchain that uses ZooBC technology could even describe what it is that constitutes participation, how it's proven, and how much weighting it's worth that's related to their particular blockchain, to their particular business model, which may be very different than, say, the ZooBC we launch in general.
Absolutely.
And this abstraction, I think, gives us a lot of power in terms of a mix and match consensus algorithm where you put what you want that's important and the network automatically rewards those who do that.
But for this, we're gonna do another another episode, because then we are gonna go outboard. It's already 4:10 p.m. here in GMT+8 in Singapore time, so we did a little freebies of 10 extra minutes of talk. All the content of our discussion is going to be available in the audio podcast that can be downloaded also through iTunes and many other means. So keep following us, keep comment, tell us what you want us to talk about, what ideas we can clarify, what question you have. And myself, Roberto Capodici, and Barton Johnson from Texas, we are here, and we're going to be here for you. Thank